and I can't deny the fact that you like me. Right now. You like
All right, award of the week for episode 86 is going to go to the NFL for still being on the wrong side of racism. Now, the NFL believes that ending racism is, you know, symbolic gestures such as painting end racism on the end zones and singing lift every voice and sing along with the national anthem, and during the national anthem having people's arms hooked together to show quote unquote solidarity, and bringing on somebody like Jay-Z to pay him to do things that to this day I don't think we've seen any kind of fruit from. But in actual things that could be done to try to end racism, they've definitely kept on moving in a reverse pace that they've always been beginning with, but not limited to the blackballing of Colin Kaepernick way back in 2015 and 2016. But this past Sunday, we had the Super Bowl. Such a great halftime show. Some say it's the best, if not one of the best. Where we had Dr. Dre, Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, and a special appearance by 50 Cent, which a lot of people didn't think it was 50 Cent. It was actually Bizarre from Eminem's group D12 performing in the club. But as it was happening, a lot of people reported that the NFL pulled out their funding for the actual show, and Dr. Dre actually had to dig into his own pocket and use $7 million of his own to produce this halftime show. And they also asked that Dr. Dre not perform the lyric in Still Dre, where he says, he still doesn't F with police, but obviously in a clean version, obviously because this is TV, he says still not loving police. And then they told Eminem not to kneel while he performs, like Colin Kaepernick, which he kind of faked out because he didn't kneel when he performed, but during a little interlude where Dr. Dre played Ain't Mad at You, little tribute to the late and great Tupac Shakur, Eminem kneeled. And the interesting thing about this is a lot of like conservatives and right wing people had a problem with it, which highlights what we all knew, which is it has nothing to do with the anthem because last I checked, I Ain't Mad at You ain't the national anthem. And when players were kneeling and people had a problem with the kneeling, people said it was disrespectful to the national anthem, and it was disrespectful to people in the uniform and disrespectful to the country in general. So clearly, it didn't have anything to do with the kneeling. But the second thing that's being highlighted this week with the NFL, not being as progressive and forward thinking when it comes to matters of race is, something I've been talking about seemingly for the past like 3 or 4 weeks, which is that the head coaching position, obviously the NFL has this suit brought upon them by Brian Flores, which sadly enough they hired former Attorney General Loretta Lynch to defend them, against Brian Flores and his in his civil suit, class action suit. They hired this black woman to defend them, which is interesting because NFL teams are doing a poor job in hiring African American coaches because every single head coaching position has been filled by a white person, with the exception of the Houston Texans, which Lovey Smith, congratulations to him. This is no knock on Lovey Smith. I support him totally, and he, to me, is one of my favorite head coaches. But the thing about Lovey Smith is he has coached in Tampa and is coached in Chicago already. So hiring him, essentially the one black coach that they did hire had to have some kind of track record behind him before he was hired. Whereas a lot of these white head coaches that are being hired for the first time, a lot of them are, former coordinators or assistants. And not opportunities not being afforded to the other coordinators and assistant coaches of color. And the other exception is the Miami Dolphins, which hired Mike McDaniels, who, when I first saw his picture as he was hired, in the headlines, it said Miami would be receiving compensation for this hire. Miami and San Francisco would be receiving compensation for this hire because it's a minority hire. And then when you look at a picture of him and he's like, how? You come to find out that he's actually biracial. His father is African American and his mother is white. But on the surface, if you look at him, like he looks like a white guy. And then in his introductory press conference, he stated that he's been classified as biracial. The really disappointing part of his statement was that even though he's been classified as biracial and mixed and different things, he classifies himself as a human being, which as an African American, and I think to a lot of African Americans who've seen these head coaching hires, that's disheartening to somebody taking, basically such a cop out of a response to how they classify as race in a time where literally I feel like this has been like the most NFL head coaching openings ever, and every single one of them have been filled. Virtually every one of them have been filled by a white guy, with the exception of these two I'm discussing at the moment. At a time like this, to respond to a question about race by saying, "Yeah, I classify myself as human." I don't think that does you any favors in, people looking in and saying that, this was a comfort hire. Like, you were hired because, to the NFL owners and Stephen Ross, you on the surface look and act white until probably pressed about your race, till somebody sees, members of your father's side of the family and say, "Oh, I didn't know you were black." But at the same time, on the other side of the coin, they could say, "Oh yeah, we did hire a black guy because look at the people in his family." So it's just disheartening that the NFL is just continuing just this mode of just being in reverse as far as race relation goes, and not affording the same opportunities they're given to white people in football that they should also be given to people of color. So award of the week. Again, a negative award week is going to the NFL for, still being on the wrong side of racism. And that right there is award of the week.